Hi friends, today we are going to look at sampling and non-sampling errors. The errors in the collection, processing and analysis of data may be broadly classified under two heads, sampling errors and non-sampling errors. Non-sampling error refers to an error that arises from the result of data collection which causes the data to differ from the true values. It is different from sampling errors, which is any difference between sample values and the universal values that may result from a limited sample size. Sampling errors. Sampling errors have their origin in sampling and arise due to the fact that only a part of the population has been used to estimate population parameters and draw inferences about the population. As such, sampling errors are absent in a complete enumeration survey. Sampling biases are primarily due to the following reason. Faulty selection of the sample, substitution, faulty demarcation of the sampling unit, constant error due to improper choice of statistics for estimating the population parameter. We are going to look at in detail. First one, faulty selection of the sample. Some of the bias is introduced by the use of defective sampling technique for the selection of the sample. For example, purposive or judgment sampling in which investigators deliberately select a representative sample to obtain certain result. This bias can be overcome by strictly adhering to a simple random sample or by selecting a sample at random subject to restrictions which while improving the accuracy or such nature that they do not introduce bias in the result. Substitution. If difficulties arise in enumerating a particular sampling unit included in the random sample, the investigators usually substitute a convenient member of the population. This obviously leads to some bias since the characteristics possessed by the substituted unit will usually be different from those possessed by the unit originally included in the sample. Faulty demarcation of sampling unit. Bias due to defective demarcation of sampling unit is particularly significant in area surveys such as agricultural experiment in the field or crop cutting surveys, etc. In such surveys, while dealing with border line cases, it depends more or less on the discretion of the investigator whether to include them in the sample or not. The last one is constant error due to improper choice of the statistic for estimating the population parameter. Increase in the sample size, that is the number of units in the sample, usually result in the decrease in the sampling error. In fact, in many situations, this decrease in sampling error is inversely proportional to the square root of the sample unit. For example, if x1, x2, etc., xn is a sample of independent observation, then the sample variance s square, that is summation I equal to 1 to n, xi minus x bar square divided by n as an estimate of the population variance sigma square is biased, whereas the statistic 1 divided by n minus 1 summation I equal to 1 to n xi minus x bar square is an unbiased estimate of sigma square. Non-sampling errors. The non-sampling errors primarily arise at the stage of observation, ascertainment, processing of the data and are thus present in both complete enumeration survey and sample survey. Thus, the data obtained in a complete census, although free from sampling errors, would still be subject to non-sampling errors, whereas data obtained in sample survey would be subject to both sampling and non-sampling errors. Non-sampling errors can occur at every stage of the planning or execution of the census or sample survey. The preparation of an exhaustive list of all the sources of non-sampling errors is a very difficult task. Some of the most important non-sampling errors arises from the following factors: faulty planning or definition, response error, non-response bias error in coverage, compiling error, publication error. Non-sampling errors. The non-sampling errors primarily arise at the stage of observation, ascertainment, processing of the data and are thus present in both complete enumeration survey and sample survey. Thus, the data obtained in a complete census, although free from sampling errors, would still be subject to non-sampling errors, whereas data obtained in sample survey would be subject to both sampling and non-sampling errors. Non-sampling errors can occur at every stage of the planning or execution of the census or sample survey. The preparation of an exhaustive list of all the sources of non-sampling errors is a very difficult task. Some of the most important non-sampling errors arises from the following factors: faulty planning or definition, response error, non-response bias error in coverage, compiling error, publication error. Faulty planning or definition. The planning of a survey consists in explicitly stating the objective of the survey. These objectives are then translated into a set of definition of the characteristics for which data are to be collected and into a set of specification for collection, processing and publishing. Here the non-sampling errors can be due to data specification being inadequate and inconsistent with respect to the objective of the survey, errors due to the location of the unit and actual measurement of the characteristic, error in recording measurements, error due to ill-designed questionnaire, lack of trained and qualified investigator and lack of adequate supervisory staff. Response errors. These errors are introduced as a result of the response furnished by the respondent and may be due to any of the following reasons. First one, error may be accidental. The respondent may misunderstand a particular question and accordingly furnish improper information unintentionally. Prestige bias. An appeal to the period or prestige of a person interviewed by introduced yet another kind of bias called prestige bias, by virtue of which he may upgrade his education, intelligence quotient, occupation, income, etc., or downgrade his age, thus resulting in wrong answers. Self interest. Quite often, in order to safeguard one's self interest, one may give incorrect information. For example, a person may give an underestimate his salary or profession, an overstatement his expense or requirement. Bias due to interviewer. Sometimes the interviewer may affect the accuracy the response by the way ask questions or record them. The information obtained on suggestions from the interviewer is very likely to be influenced by interviewers' beliefs and prejudices. Failure of respondent's memory. One source of error which is common to most of the method of collecting information is that of recall. Many of the questions in surveys refer to happiness or conditions in the past, and there is a problem both of remembering the event and associating it with the current time period. Then, non response bias. Non response biases occur if full information is not obtained on all the sampling units. In house to house survey, non response usually result in the respondent is not found at home even after repeated calls, etc., or if he is unable to furnish the informations on all questions, or if he refuses to answer certain questions. Therefore, some bias is introduced as a consequence of the exclusion of sections of the population with certain peculiar characteristics due to non response. Errors in coverage. If the objective of the survey are non preciously in clear cut terms, this may result in the inclusion in the survey of certain units which are not to be included, the exclusion of certain units which were to be included in the survey under the objective. For example, in a census, to determine the number of individuals in the age group, say 20 years to 50 years, more or less serious errors may occur in deciding whom to enumerate unless particular community or area is specified and also the time at which the age is to be specified. Then about compiling errors. Various operations of data processing such as editing and coding of the response, punching card, tabulation and summarizing the original observation made in the survey are a potential source of error. Compiling error are subject to control through verification, consistency, check, etc. The last one is publication error. Publication error, that is the error committed during presentation, printing, or tabulating the result, are basically due to two sources. First refers to mechanics of publication, the proofing error and the like. The other, which is more of serious nature, lies in the failure of survey organization to print out the limitations of the statistic. Hope you understood the basics of sampling and non-sampling errors. Thank you.